Welcome to the Startup Leader Show, where we speak with leaders and founders from startups and space companies from around the globe. I'm your host, Lisa Dreher, and I'm excited to introduce our guest for today, Ewan Reid. He is the president and CEO of Mission Control. Welcome to the show, Ewan.
Thanks, Lisa. It's great to be here.
Yeah, thanks for making time. Maybe we can start by having you talk a little bit about your background and Mission Control.
Sure thing. Background. Well, I've worked in space my whole career, so pretty lucky. I, back in the day, worked for a private Canadian company, which was a NASA prime contractor. And through that job, I got to be a flight controller for 10 space shuttle missions down at Johnson Space Center in Houston. Pretty amazing to get to work on the space station and space shuttle programs. And got to do a lot of testing down at Kennedy Space Center on the launch pad. I have a cool story about getting to sleep once in the shuttle payload bay during a lightning storm. Got to design some rover prototypes for the Canadian Space Agency in collaboration with NASA. Culminated with a cool mission simulation on the top of a volcano in Hawaii for the mission that is now called Viper. Really my career got off to this amazing start. Kind of couldn't really think of how to top it, and so said, "Oh well, I guess I better start a company." And so founded Mission Control in 2015 with some friends and colleagues in the space sector, Michele Farragelli, Melissa Battler, a couple others, and been kind of off to the races ever since. Done some exciting things since then, and a lot more exciting stuff to come.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so you have to tell the story about falling asleep.
Okay. So I'm testing a laser camera system, just a preliminary kind of interface test, not preliminary, sorry, a final interface test to make sure everything is working well and connected properly before launch. This is in the rotating service structure, the kind of big cover that closes over the space shuttle so they can open the payload bay on the launch pad and do the final tests. And there's a few quality control folks and security folks there with me. And they come on the PA and make an announcement about I don't know what it is, a Class C lightning warning or something. One of the locals knew better than I did what to do, kind of jumped up and left. And I was like, what's going on? And he got out of there before they came on in the PA again and said, we've now progressed to a whatever Class D lightning warning, which meant that we had to kind of shelter in place or lock down. And so we had to wait until the storm passed. We couldn't do the test because it was an electrical test. We could do that during the storm, but we also couldn't go out onto the metal gantry outside the shuttle. So we had to just wait in there. And, it took a long time. It took hours. And all told, I think from arriving to do the test and waiting to get on site and then going on site and starting the test and then pausing the test and then restarting it, I was there for something like 14 or 16 hours. And it's pretty hard to sleep when you're wearing, a bunny suit and a beard cover and booties because it's a clean environment and it's kind of whirring machines and bright lights. But the whole time I was kind of like, well, getting paid and I'm lying here under the Canadarm, one of Canada's proudest inventions, and I'm on one of the greatest feats of human engineering, and things could be worse, so tried to catch a few winks, but really it was just an experience that I always remember.
That's amazing. Wow, what an amazing background. So, can you tell us a little bit more about what Mission Control is working on?
Yeah, absolutely. So our tagline is that we are software for Earth, Moon, and Mars. So we have two main product lines. And maybe I'll start by saying I'm really excited about this, but we've got a new website in work that is coming out relatively soon. So while I would certainly encourage listeners to check us out now, I would also encourage them to check back in a few weeks and see the changes, where we're going to outline a little more detail our two core offerings. One is a software platform that streamlines operations for robotics and payloads deployed in space. And the other is a tool set to help increase the autonomous capability of space missions by putting AI on board on the edge in space.
Wow, exciting. Okay, so we invited you here to talk a little bit about, just the development of Mission Control and how that process has gone and what you've learned along the way. And maybe we can start by having you talk a little bit about just the biggest keys to your success so far.
It's a really interesting question, and of course, there's so many elements that go into a successful enterprise. For me personally, this is interesting, but I'm going to do this. I'm going to poach this answer from one of our co-op students, one of our interns or co-op students who worked for us this past year. She gave a live interview just the other day, and I watched it. She did a great job, and it was for young students, grades 3s and 4s or something. I'm not sure. And one of them asked a question about her success, and she focused on tenacity, and I thought that was a great answer. And I would kind of use that as well, and I'd maybe spin it a little different just to say confidence, belief in oneself, but then even more than that, belief in the team and what we're trying to do. And so I think if you believe in yourself first and foremost, and then you bring the right people around you, you believe in them, that's kind of reciprocated, and so it kind of becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, and you all believe in each other, and then you all believe in what you're trying to do.
Yeah.
That can help you when you have the difficult times, the challenging times, which of course, any enterprise, any activity, what doesn't matter whether you're an athlete, you got a game, or you're in a theater production, or whatever you're doing, things don't always go as planned. There are challenges along the way, but if you never forget that you can do it, that you have the right folks around you that can do it, and that it's worth doing, and that it will ultimately be successful, it makes it a lot easier to get through those challenging times. So I think that's one of the, if not the most important things to kind of continuing to be successful.
Yeah, no kidding. What would you say have been some of the most valuable lessons that you've learned along the way?
That one's really tricky because there have been so many. And so in it, maybe what I'll do is I'll kind of cop out and say it's not one specific thing, but it's to learn that you have so much to learn, and to strive to keep learning.
Mm.
You don't know what you don't know, but you can find out, and especially if you get help and if you ask for it. And that's something that it's tricky, because I don't want to go against what I said before about having confidence. You have to have confidence that you can be able to do something, but that's not the same as saying, I know everything. I know exactly what to do, and I'm going to go and do it. I think if you go out with that mindset, you're almost doomed to failure. I think back to a few years ago, we went through a program at the University of Toronto called the Creative Destruction Lab. It's an accelerated program, and they had a new space stream. It was led by Chris Hadfield, Canadian astronaut. We were accepted into that program, and we graduated. We were one of the first graduating class. And before we went, I actually said to myself, do we need to do this? Like, I've worked in space my whole career. We've got revenues. We're growing already. What? I don't really think I need to do this. Do I need to do this? Well, it turns out it was very much a case of I didn't know what I didn't know, because working with the mentors and fellows there, connecting with other business leaders, investors, I learned so much, and so did my colleagues. And it was very much that case of, I had to be open to that learning. Otherwise, I would have missed that opportunity, right? So I think that's an important lesson, is be open to that learning and strive to keep learning.
Yeah. How did you find that opportunity, or how did that opportunity come about? It seems like it's really valuable.
I suppose it was promoted, far and wide, and particularly in Canada, where while the space industry is certainly strong, it's a small community, and we kind of know each other and hear about things. And with Chris Hadfield's name being attached to something that was already an established program, that created a certain amount of buzz. And so, we were interested, and I folks probably encouraged us to apply, and did so. And yeah, I would certainly be an advocate of the program. I think, other people are like me. They're going to have stuff to learn. Go out and learn it.
Yeah, yeah. Is there anything that you would do differently if you were to go back and start all over, knowing what you know now?
So this is also an interesting question, and I'm also maybe going to take an answer from someone I've heard before. I think I might be paraphrasing wrong, but a gentleman by the name of Mina Mitri, who's the CEO of Kepler Communications in Toronto, a venture-backed startup here in Canada. I heard him on a panel at MIT, I think it was last year, and he said something along the lines of, like, if he had known how hard this was all going to be, he wouldn't have done it. And so in a sense, I kind of understand what he's saying, and I kind of agree with it. So if you say, what would you differently if you had to start all over? If I knew everything I knew now and was back at that starting point, I would certainly question myself long and hard to know whether I actually do it. Now, I'm not implying I regret anything. It's been an amazing experience, one of the best experiences of my life. I've in a sense, I've loved every minute of it. It's been very challenging. It's very difficult, and it therefore takes a toll, right? So you can't really anticipate that going into it. You think, oh, it's gonna be fun, it'll be exciting, and you also don't know how long things will take. You think, oh, I'll do it for a year or two and see how it goes. Like, well, you're not going to be where you think you're going to be in a year or two, but you're going to be somewhere, and you're going to want to keep going. And so, it's interesting. I don't know that there's one other, nugget that, oh, if I only had known this thing, the course would have changed. But yeah, just at least a
Yeah.
little bit of perspective.
Absolutely. One of the things that you said early on in our conversation, and even just a minute ago, you said that space companies are different, and that they're a little bit different in terms of getting off the ground. And you also just said that you have revenue, which I think is really important. And it's, I think, one of the biggest challenges for a lot of space companies is to get to that revenue point quickly. How has that been for Mission Control?
Yeah, so it's a great question. Let me say a few different things. One, we initially were lucky. Yeah, and luck comes into this. To get the support of the Canadian Space Agency, the first contract we won was to develop an AI system to help Mars rovers navigate more safely, and that was a contract. That was a revenue generating exercise. That was way back in, I guess, 2015. We signed the contract and started that work in 2016. What's interesting, though, is we're a space company, and that was revenue, but we didn't put anything in space, right? We were getting paid to advance a capability that CSA felt, another company or agency might use in the future. And we continued to win contracts and to do space-related work for companies like MDA and other big companies, as well as for CSA. We got NASA funding, contracts as well. But we still hadn't been to space.
Hmm.
And it was only last year, for the first time, that we successfully sent something up to space and now have what we call space heritage, which is so critical. Because guess what? If you're going to sell something to somebody and say, here, your mission needs this, it's a critical piece of infrastructure to make your mission successful and for you to achieve or enable your customers to get what they're trying to get. Well, and they say, okay, great. Does it work in space? And you say, well, I don't really know. I've never tried it. I mean, it's going to be your first mission. I mean, guess what? You're not going to make a sale. It's not going to work, right? And so that's, it's critical for us to do that. So you have to spend money in a way to make money. Now, because we've had some revenue from this pre-space R&D and other contracts, that's helped. We've also had funding from the Canadian Space Agency. So a couple of years ago, we were awarded a grant over $3 million, and it was for us to demonstrate the deployment of an AI system on the surface of the moon and the software platform to distribute mission data to different locations through the cloud to enable scientists and engineers at different locations to participate in the mission, in terms of path planning and mission operations. So that system is on the way to the moon right now. It launched in December on a SpaceX rocket from Kennedy Space Center. It's riding on a lunar lander made by a company called iSpace Incorporated. It's an international exploration company headquartered in Japan. And it's going to land on the moon in a couple months. And when it does, a small rover from the United Arab Emirates, as part of the Emirates lunar mission, will deploy from the lander and will send images back to the lander, where our AI payload will assess them and will classify each pixel in the terrain, a different type of a feature, and then send those images down to the ground for our team to analyze and look at. On a future mission, an AI could be used to actually control the rover, tell it where to go, or tell a science instrument where to sample, or even just select which data is most interesting to send back to the ground. Because guess what? You send these missions up there, by and large, to get data, and we're going to get more data than we can send back. You don't want to leave the wrong data on the moon, So there's a huge opportunity, a huge market opportunity for deploying AI on the edge of space. And with this demonstration, as well as another one on a European satellite coming up in a few weeks, we'll be world leaders in deploying AI on the edge in space.
Wow, amazing. That's so exciting. So, one of the things I think we run into a lot are these roadblocks. How have you managed to work around those roadblocks?
It's really interesting. they're all so different, and I feel like the roadblocks for me running a space company might be different than roadblocks for someone else in a different industry. I would say, like everything to do with our business, going into challenging situations, with kindness, decency, working well with other people is important, because often roadblocks are the kinds of things that you need to, you know, there's a logjam. You need to break it up, but you need people. You need people's help, whether that's a stakeholder in government, it's some kind of approval you need, or whether it's convincing an investor to bridge a financing gap, or who knows what it might be. Um, those times, it can be stressful. It can be some of the most challenging times of running a company. But if you let that stress or worry or anxiety get to you, it's going to be hard for you to work closely and, engage with the people you need to engage with, and maybe convince them of what you need to convince them of. So I think that's always a good rule for any time, is to, is kindness and decency and honesty, being open with others.
Yeah, absolutely. So I want to end with one last question, and that is, if you were to make a prediction about the future, what would that one prediction be?
Well, we have a lot of challenges on Earth right now, but it's part of my job to be optimistic, and I am optimistic about life on Earth, and how we can overcome some of these challenges. I think space is a big part of that. Space helps us learn who we are, where we came from, where we're going. It's a part of the future, and I think the more humans can look to the future and think about the future instead of focusing too much on the past, we have an opportunity to change the world in a positive way. So I think, one prediction in the future is that we will change the world in a positive way. We will find a way to do more things in space, and at the same time, protect our environment here on Earth. Hopefully learn to stop cutting down trees, and find a way to live together more peacefully. And I always think that we're making strides in that end, and in that direction, and we'll keep doing so.
Great. I love that. So if someone wanted to learn more about mission control, what should they do?
So our website is live. It's not our new one, it's our old one, but it still works. You can reach out there. You can send a message. You can request a product demo. One of our team will get back to you relatively quickly. And like I said, check back again in a couple of weeks, because we will have a new website launched. We have social media channels, LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. We try to post a lot of content. We really are keen on engaging the public, and in particular the next generation, and inspiring the next generation to always keep exploring. So hopefully there's a lot of ways that you can reach out and follow along on our journey as we go to the moon and beyond.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being here today. And hopefully, as things continue to develop, we'll have you on again.
Well, thanks, Lisa. I appreciate it. And thanks everyone for tuning in.